talk on Android views, styles, and themes. How many people here would classify themselves as beginners? Okay. Well, if I'm going too fast, let me know. I work with this stuff every day, so it's kind of comes easy to me. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know. There's a presentation. There. All right. So this will be a mix between some slides and some live coding. How much time do we got? I got 30. We'll see how that goes. So what are Android views? Android views are the basic building blocks for user interaction. So any touch event that you put on the screen, every time your finger touches the screen, it'll be going through a view. And the view is where these touch events are parsed, and that's where they're handled. So anytime you click on it, you do a long click, that's all done through the view. So they handle touch events, they also handle drawing. So I like to think of views as kind of the link between the native code that you can't really touch, that's behind the scenes, that's not open source, and what the user wants to do. So it's the direct link between that and the actual platform. So it's a rectangular space that's on the screen, so all views are rectangular. You can make them look circular or whatever shape, but they will be rectangular. And like I said earlier, it hosts the content on the screen. And then there's also this thing called a ViewGroup. It's a subclass of a view, and it is a container for multiple views. So you can have a layout with a bunch of different views in it. It follows the composite design pattern, so it's the same rules apply to a view to a view group. There's some caveats with a view group. They have to measure their children and they have to lay out their children. But that's all you really need to know right now. So every time you see a layout in Android, it's a view group. It's the base class for all layouts that you will use in Android. So this is what kind of look like. If you're familiar with activities or fragments, that's usually, well, that is a view group. And then you can have children and leaves, whatever you want to call them. View groups can have view groups within them. And this is kind of how you build out your view hierarchy. So this right here, this bottom one could be some text, and these could be buttons up here. One thing to note with this is drawing view groups and laying out view groups is expensive on the system. So it's important to try to keep this hierarchy as small as possible, just because it has to, if you make changes at the bottom node, you have to redraw everything up and down the tree, which can take a while depending on how deep your view hierarchy is. So in Android, the recommended way to create views is through XML. So this is a text view, so this is a view that just displays text. So each view, it's not required to have an ID, but if you want to reference it in any way, the view needs to have an ID. This view is important so you can reference it in your Java code. It's also important for saving the state of the view. So what would happen when your app, just say on rotate, when you rotate your device, what Android does is it totally destroys everything. It stores all the state. It destroys all the views, but it saves this little bunch of information. When it restores back, when it's fully rotated to landscape mode or whatever, it will, if it doesn't have an ID, it won't even store that data. But if it has an ID, it has a key that it can store the data and associate it with. So it's important to put on IDs on things, even if you don't reference them, which I don't see a situation where you wouldn't do that. But it helps save the state. And then every view is required to have a width and a height. So in this case, you have a match parent, which means the parent view group, it'll just match the width or height of that. And then you also have wrap content, which, as it says, it'll, whatever the content in that view is, it'll just it'll wrap to the edges of that. You can also specify an exact pixel amount, which I do not recommend. never seen that, and I hope I never do. It's just not smart on Android because Android is so fragmented to where there's no point to put an exact pixel amount, just because the screen density changes so much from device to device. It just doesn't make any sense. What Android uses is DP, which is the density independent pixel. So essentially what that means is, just say for a really dense and pixel device, I'm trying to explain this. So a dense pixel device, it kind of represents an exact length of, regardless of how dense your device is. So in one case of a dense device, 1 dp will be 4 pixels, but for a less dense device, 1 dp could be 1 pixel. So it's trying to map out kind of the exact same distance, which is it's never going to be exactly right, but you can use that for your width and height is the important part. It kind of takes some playing around with to get comfortable with it. But then so other than the width and height, you have all these different attributes that you can add to it. It's really specific to the view itself, what the list of attributes are. I'll show you a good source to find what all these attributes are and where to find them and what values go in them on this slide. So if you're wondering, hey, what does a text view have? What can I do with the text view in XML? On the Google developer page with whatever view, the docs for whatever view, there's always a section called XML Attributes. You guys see that right? Yeah. There we go. So it has a list of all the attributes. There we go. So it has a list of all the attributes and what related Java method is, and I'll explain that in a bit. And then it has a description of what it does. So as you see for text view, it has a bunch. You can specify a bunch of different things. As you can see, this all corresponds to some Java methods. Because in Android, all the XML does is it's later parsed down to a Java object. So there has to be a corresponding method or field on that corresponding Java object, and you should have a huge list of, I don't go through all these, but depending on the view, the list will vary. So it's a good reference. Just go to the developer's Android, look up the view you want, and that will give you attributes. Or you can just dive into the view Java class and go from there. So the less recommended way to create views, which sometimes is necessary, is using Java. As I said earlier, all those XML attributes will be parsed in the Java class and represented in a field. But avoid it when possible, just because, as you'll see in a little bit, using XML is just way easier. It helps you out in a bunch of ways, and it has a nice design tool to help you visualize what you're actually making. So the parsing is done through a layout inflator. And what this layout inflator will do is help take the XML to Java. So you'll see a method like layout inflator, inflate, a layout class, and then what that means is it's just taking whatever XML code is in that layout and representing in Java. And then I have one note, ViewGroups. So yeah, anytime you want to add a view to ViewGroup, that should be there. Kind of talked about this earlier. So the main ways you size views is match parent, which is just, as it says, matches ViewGroup parent, and then you wrap content, which if you have a text view, it'll just wrap the edges of that text, and then certain amounts that never use pixels, it's just there, and then you have density independent pixels, which you should use.
What about weights? You didn't mention that.
Yeah, I mean weights. You can use a weight. That's kind of hard to explain.
Basically, the weight is you can set
there's another way. I forgot. A newer way. Let's go ahead. Sorry.
But the weight is if you have two things side by side, you can say I want you to take up, the full. You have 100% of the width. Then you can say I want this to take up 75% of it, and it will automatically resize them to whatever screen you have.
Right. So if you have a weight's kind of all the weights within a view group are kind of added up, and then it's divided by that specific, the view's weight represents the percent of the view that view takes up. That's really hard to explain.
It's a linear layout thing.
What?
It's a linear layout.
Yeah, it's a linear layout thing when things are in a line, but there's a new percent support. What's the official name? Support percent
relative layout.
Yeah, percent
There's
relative
a couple of them. This per frame.
in frame, which you can actually specify the percent of the parent that you want the view to take up. So you can say, I want this view to be 50%, this one to be 25, this one to be 25, and that's backwards compatible to I think B7 or it's compatible all the way back.
You can also do aspect ratios now too, which is just like a percentage converted into an aspect ratio. It's like I don't remember exactly what it was,
16
but
to
they describe how to do aspect ratios with everything, which is pretty nice when you're using photos and stuff like that.
I think they're trying to make it more CSS and web-like is what they're kind of moving towards. So I'm going to dive into some code and just kind of show you what it looks like. Man, this is not good.
I think there's a presenter view somehow. I don't know how to do it, but view presenter maybe. View and then presenter view maybe. Yeah, there it goes.
There we go.
That's better.
Okay, so this is what a typical XML layout is. So you have your view group, which is a linear layout up top, and then you have all the sizes associated with it. So you have the width, orientation as specific to linear layouts. As you go through, you can put padding, margins, anything, any one of those attributes that are in the list. So as you're going through, so this orientation is vertical, so this text view will be on top of this edit text. So a text view hosts text, and the edit text is where you can input text. And like I said earlier, you can have nested layouts. So this is a relative layout within a linear layout, and then that has the children of its own, which I'm not really getting into the details of each individual layout, but for relative layout, you place the children based on the reference with either the parent or the other children within it. So I have this one align parent right, just to move all the way to the right. And then I have align parent left, we'll just take it left. So yeah, it's just an example of what it looks like in XML. Take some playing around with to really get a feel for it. And then you can have even more nested layouts, which, as I recommended earlier, be careful with how nested you get your layouts to be. How do I get out of presenter?
Probably view and exit presenter view.
So one of the big perks of using XML to do your views is this design view, which usually breaks, but it's still nice to have. So you can see a rough estimate of what your view is going to look like. So I had that linear layout that's vertical. So as you can see, these are all stacked vertically, and then of the title, this edit text, the buttons, and the text view. So it helps you iterate on the design process to where you can make a quick edit to code, come check it out real quick. There's a new feature, which I don't think is full-blown yet, where you can essentially do the same thing with on your device. What's the official name of it?
Instant run.
What?
Instant run.
Instant run. So you can make updates to code and instantly launch it to your device, kind of instantly. So you can have that live update, but that won't be working as it should for, I don't know, a couple more months. But it's something to look out for. But in the meantime, this works. Yeah, so, and then kind of dissect what this all is. You can do drag and drop, which I don't really use, kind of just like doing in code, but if you wanted to throw a small button here, you could. And then you have kind of the hierarchy on the right here of all the views, and it highlights either the view group or the view itself. And then you can specify different attributes on it, which will be updated in the XML code. All right, so any questions on that? Sorry, I was going kind of fast. And then I can dive into the views itself. So if I dive into this floating action button, which I'll just go all the way down to the view level, which if you think it's a good idea to go into the source code and go to the view class to learn what views do, you'll understand there's about 20,000 lines of code in this one class. So I wouldn't recommend that. But I mean, as you can see, there's a bunch of fields which are storing the state of the view, even on this base level. Probably get a lot of good examples here, but you get the point. It's the XML translates into the Java code. So you can do it either way. Recommend the XML way. Yeah. So, kind of a quick overview of that. So as I was talking about earlier, each view has its own set of attributes, and a way of grouping these attributes together are with styles. So from the Google Docs, it says a style is a collection of properties that specify the look and format of a view or window. So as it says in this definition, it's just an abstract. It's a way to abstract common properties through common views in an easy to apply way and an easy to edit way. So the situation you run into where you want to use styles is you have a bunch of views that are kind of in the same category. Maybe you have a calculator button, and each button is going to have the same background, each number, and the same text color, and the same size or padding. It would take a lot of time to go through and just say you want to change the text color to pink. It's going to take forever to go through all 9 numbers, all 10 numbers, and change each one of those text colors to pink. So what you do is you extract that out into a style. So all you have to do is change it in one spot, and it will update all of them. So it makes your life easier, but it can also make your life kind of hectic if you don't do it right. And I'll talk a little bit about there's some good practices on that. So kind of some rules, only one style is an exception, but I won't get into that. Only one style can be directly applied on a view at a time. So a text view can only have one style specified in XML or anywhere else. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And the style properties are dependent on a view being affected, so you can't apply a text color to an image, a view that's supposed to display images. If you do, it'll just be ignored. It's kind of redundant. So your app won't crash or anything. It will just pretend like it never happened. So I'll go into some code. So I have presenter mode. This one. It's stupid.
If you do command 1, it should pop up.
Hey, there it is. Awesome, thanks. Well, let me just see. Yeah. So where do your styles live? In your project, they live in your main, they live in your resource directory, and within the resource directory, they live in your values. So you'll have a styles.xml where you'll specify all the different styles you want to use. The ones up here are themes. We won't worry about those right now. But so you have this text view style. So it's the exact same attributes as you would see in the XML code. So you can set the background, text color, whatever is specific to that particular view. So if I go into my XML, that's not what I wanted. So if I go to my XML and I wanted to apply this style to these views, all you'd have to do is go to Style, and then at Style, and it'll apply all these attributes from that style specified, and all these views are common and for the same usage, so I'll put them in, I'll make them all look the same. So So as before, it had black text and white background. Now all these have a white text and black background. So like I said earlier, it's just a way to abstract some of these properties out and apply them to common views. So you go into here, and there's also something to note with styling is a style can have a parent, and there's two ways to define that parent. So the first way, and what having a parent means is it just inherits all the attributes that were specified in the parent's code. So in this case, I have, well, the first way to specify a parent is with this parent tag. So in this case, I'm using base widget app button. This is a built-in style from Android. This is just how the default style, how it looks. So with this parent, I can override the background color, text color, padding, or whatever else I want to do. If there's common attributes between the parent and this one, as you can imagine, this style right here will override whatever the parent has. So if I go into content, is it already applied? All right, so I already have that button style applied. As you can see, it's pink and white. So if I went to button color and changed it to green, I think that's a green. It changes the text color of that button to green. So the important thing with having parent styles is it'll maintain all the attributes that the parent has while adding your own flavor on it. So if you did it like this, like I did earlier for the text view, this is valid, this will work, but you're missing out on all the defaults that would be applied to it, which will come in handy if you want to keep it looking materially or make it look consistent. So the second way to specify a parent is in the name itself. So these two are equivalent. So the way you do it is you have your parent with the base widget app button, and all you have to do to apply, to add your custom style to it is just do a dot and then whatever custom name you want on it. So this will work exactly the same as the one above. So if I went into here, I have black text. The only problem with doing it this way is it gets longer. The text you have to use gets longer, but it is more verbose and it will give you a little more context when you're just looking at the XML. So I apply these styles not to the text views. And it works. That's what you expect. So yeah, that's just another way to define the parent and kind of put your own flavor on a specific style. There's also another way to specify a parent, and that's by using both methods. And I do not recommend this, and I hope you never do it. Anybody have any idea of which one will stick? The parent, the tag, or the name? Any guesses?
Parent tag.
Parent tag. Okay. And let's try this out.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad. There's no reason to do this. Because your name won't tell you what you're styling. So let's just make sure this is the page. Yeah, I went back to the parent tag. So if you ever see this situation, step one, delete all the code. But if you can't, know that the parent tag will be applied, not using the parent in the name technique. And this is just a bad idea for a lot of reasons. It's just cause confusion when you're in your XML and you're looking through and it says something like button.large and then you're doing it to a text view. It doesn't make any sense.
Do the name and parent have to be in a specific order?
What do you mean?
It's just XML. Right.
It's
So my
worse,
guess was
though.
it was the last one that was
No.
there.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you could put parent first and the name after, and it would still parse it the same.
Right. So yeah, that's how you use styles. And yeah, so having parents can be powerful, but it can also be risky. Not risky, just annoying. So the close cousin of styles are themes. So themes are declared the same way as styles. Declared the same way as styles, so you're gonna go into, I'll show you in a bit. You'll go into that same styles.xml, or you can put it somewhere else. But it uses the same type of format as a style. The way to think about themes is themes are global and styles are local. So you want to apply themes to your whole application or activity, or there's a newer thing where you can apply it to like view groups and views, but don't worry about that right now. You can apply it to, so the main ways you want to apply it is to activities and applications. And the reason you want to do that is just say you have a certain type you want to use for your text all over. Well, instead of going to each and every view and changing it, you can set a theme of what type of text it is, and it will be applied globally, so you don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of advantages to using themes. It's how you use the app compat theme, which applies material design across the board. So just think themes global, styles are local, and don't mix the two. And as I said, commonly used for applications and activities. So things to remember, they are not the same as styles. They have different attributes that just don't make sense in each other's context. So you'll have a theme, and so what happens with styles is you can be a little more broad with it. You can say, I want the background to be the color white or the color black. But if you put that same attribute in a theme, that doesn't make sense. If you want, you put the attribute background black in your theme, which is applied across the application, that doesn't really make sense. Like, what does that mean? Is it the window background? Is it the action bar background? So there might be some links or crossovers between themes and styles, but just they're usually a different set, and they should be crossed. And themes can be applied to views to override the current parent theme. Kind of alluded to this earlier. This is newer in Lollipop. I think it was Lollipop when this officially came out. All this means is if you have a theme on the application where you can apply a specific theme to a view group to where that will be applied to all its children, or you can apply it to a view where it should be applied to the view. And when it's applied, it'll just propagate to all the children. So I'll give an example of what that looks like. So this is the same file. You can do the same file as your styles. Right here I have my app theme. And the parent follows the same as styles. So with the dot syntax or the parent syntax, this one's mixed up a little bit. So you can have the theme and then app compat, which is essentially material design and all the new look from Lollipop they want to put on there. It can be whatever. Then you specify whatever theme-specific attributes. It's kind of hard to figure out what you can and can't do in themes, just because it's you're not really sure what attributes will stick, which one will not. I'm sure there's a doc on the Google developer site that you can look at for all what you can and can't do. So what you do with this is you have this app theme. These are all auto-generated, and the way you apply it is, one way to apply it is through your Android manifest file. So there's a namespace for a theme, and all you do is @style and then whatever theme you have. And then as you can see, you can also apply it to your activity. So you can do either activity or application. and it's easy just to do it through your manifest. So in this case, I have this theme. I put the text color as black, and if I change that to just like pink or blue, I don't really specify any colors. Maybe pink. Yeah. And I look at that in my layout file. So all the items that don't have a text color specified on them, their text color will become pink, and this will be applied globally to wherever your theme is applied. So just keep in mind it can be powerful, and sometimes you have to think about, do I want this in a theme or do I want this more in a style? But if you can manage it in a theme, go for it if you know it's going to be applied everywhere. So that's the big caveat with themes. It's just an application or activity. It's just a bigger scope is all it is compared to styles. So some do's and don'ts, kind of learned through trial and error. Don't create a style just because multiple views have the same property. They kind of have to be in the same context or have the same meaning within the app. So if you have two views that have the same text size and the same layout, it might make your code a little shorter to extract that out to a style, but they're kind of two different components of your app. So as time goes on, their sizes will vary and they will change, and it's going to cause headache in the future. So make sure they're in the same context, like that example of calculator button or the numbers on a calculator. Those will always be looking the same and acting the same. So apply the styles there. I don't recommend using a style for single usages. I mean you can, but it's kind of redundant, and it adds just another thing to navigate around and look at. And as I said earlier, make sure the same context, or the view has the same context or usages, and don't mix themes and styles. And what else? One more slide. And use app compat. So this is compatible way back to, I don't know what the exact device is, but pretty much all devices use app compat, and this is all the material looking things. So you can get a nice material look to your app that is on KitKat or before. So it's important to use that everywhere, just so you don't have to maintain two different themes on two different generations of app or phone, because this will go back pretty far, and you're not really missing out on any phones by using it. Right. Sorry, covered a lot of content there. Any questions? No, that's all I had.
One thing you did that I really love to do is jump into the code, but like the view code. I'm sure some people might not know how to do that. Do you want to explain that?
Oh yeah. So if you want to jump into view code, you can either just say I want to go to text view. Well, this is a shortcut, so we'll do it either way, a more straightforward way. Here's Jump. So what I do to jump in is Android Studio has a nice shortcut where you press the command button and then click on the specific view or method. It will take you right down into the next level. So you click on toolbar, and that'll drive you right down into the toolbar class. So you can see everything that's involved with the toolbar. You can see it extends ViewGroup and all the fields that are relevant. You can go down and see how it all works. As you can see right here, this is where it parses the XML and turns it into Java code. So it's in through the toolbar constructor. But yeah, it's so command click on anything you want. So if I want to take just say I'm at this method.
Set text maybe right there.
Yeah, so if I want to take it down another layer, trying to find a good one to do. There we go. So if I want to take it on another layer, command click on that save instance states, and it will take you down to the level below. I think this is the view class. As you can see, it's line 14,700. So don't go through digging here too much. I mean, it is nice to get a good grasp on views. I feel like if you understand what's kind of going on behind the scenes or the general idea of views, it can really up your game a lot in Android development, just because that's where all the pixels come through and that's where all the touch interactions come through, and it's your link between essentially the pixels and what you want to do with them. It's that layer just right on top of, would it be the hardware? I think the hardware, yeah. So yeah, that's really nice to do. Oh, and it's gone. Yeah. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Something else I kind of like, if you open up your styles XML, there's this new themes editor. So like click on the open editor at the top right. This kind of helped me discover a bug I had. So basically it shows you your themes of your app. So if you look, see like he changes text to pink right there. So like the disabled looks the same exact as normal right there, right? Because he changed the text to pink. And basically you have to find a selector, a special XML file, saying what's disabled and what's not disabled. And I had this bug in mind that basically I had to find a static color, and really you should avoid doing that without defining all the normal states, because it's kind of a bug that I had that I was like, why isn't the button changing color? And I'm like, oh, I found it in here. So kind of interesting to go through the here to make sure your app looks pretty in here, because it'll show you stuff that you don't pay attention to.
Yeah. And these look like all the views that are built, all the widgets built by Android team, showing you
how they're affected by your theme, basically.
Yeah. Any other questions? Nope. Cool. That's all I had.